This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
Welcome, Alphas. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show for you today. Our guest will be Román Baca, Artistic Director of SE5 Dance Company. Román is a classically trained ballet dancer and choreographer who, in 2001, took a hiatus from dance and enlisted in the Marine Corps, where he served as a machine gunner and a fire team leader in Fallujah, Iraq.
I think everybody who's a ballet and dancer takes a hiatus to join the Marines. It happens.
I think it's pretty standard.
Yeah. You were a ballet dancer before you joined the Navy, right?
I lost my dancing leg in the war.
That's what I heard. Now you can do those pirouettes. You just like spin like a top, right?
Yeah, but now I'm scared when I do it, so it's more of a fear-wet.
One of my favorite parts about being in the military was always, when you meet somebody new, Kieran, like you're all at the same location doing generally kind of like the same thing, at least on that day. But almost everybody's got a unique path and way that they got there. And I got to tell you, from dancing on Broadway to basic training in the Marine Corps, such a jump and so cool. And Román's actually a friend of yours, right, Stacey?
Yes.
How did y'all meet?
I actually met him through my television show After Action. Yeah, we were talking about arts and healing, and I just was so compelled by his own journey of healing and reconnecting with his creative self. And I can't wait for you guys to meet him.
As a side note, I was in basic with a guy who was a backup dancer for Leah. If you remember, Leah passed away in an airplane crash, and he didn't have a job anymore. And that weirdly, that was his dance, was his journey, before he went into the military. And I don't remember the guy's name, but I do know that we did a killer harmony on Yesterday by Boyz II Men while we were going through basic. So, buddy, if you're out there somewhere, shoot a message. I'd love to hear from you.
Let me hear it. Yesterday.
Ooh.
All my troubles feel so far away.
See, you just do all the hard parts and I go, ooh.
All right.
That's it.
Okay, Alphas, please stick around. We'll be taking a break dancing. No. Dancing break. Breaking? We'll be right back after the break with Marine Román Baca.
Are you struggling with debt, budgeting, or credit score issues? VetSense has got you covered. Get expert advice on managing debt, crafting a budget, and improving your credit score. Our platform offers personalized financial education and up to 3 financial or credit counseling sessions. Don't let financial stress hold you back. Take control of your financial future today. Visit vetsense.org to get started.
Alphas, today we are joined by former gun-toting, steely-eyed Iraq War veteran Román Baca, who's the co-founder and artistic director of SE5 Dance Company. You heard that right. I said dance. Román's got the moves, and he's teaching others how to get their bodies moving too in a healing way. Román, welcome to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Stacey, Adam, Joe, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, Román, it's such a pleasure to have you. And you've done incredible work blending your military experience with your passion for the arts, which I'd love to hear kind of more about that journey. And as someone who's used dance to help veterans process their own trauma, what are some of the biggest challenges you face in getting veterans to embrace the arts as a tool for healing, especially those who may feel somewhat disconnected from creative outlets?
That's a huge question. I'll give you the history in a real quick 1, 2, 3. I was a classical ballet dancer for many years. I had a friend in high school who did classical ballet. She sparked an interest that I followed to become a professional ballet dancer. I stepped away from a professional dance career after a few years of doing it to join the United States Marine Corps. It was to challenge my perceptions of what I could do personally, to rise to a challenge, to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves,
Mhm.
and to change people's perceptions of what male dancers are. Served in the Marine Corps for 8 years, culminating in a deployment to Fallujah, Iraq. And when I was in Iraq, talked to a lot of my guys. I kept it pretty under wraps that I was a professional ballet dancer before Fallujah. And, when you're sitting around with a bunch of guys and talking about everything, you soon run out of things to talk about. And so I started saying I was in plays and on Broadway. And then I started opening up to my best friend out there and telling him that I was a professional ballet dancer before. And we started concocting these ways we could put this experience we were having in war on stage when we got home. I got home from war, did not go directly into the arts. I searched for different things to do, like my grandfather did when he got home from the Korean War. I did like normal everyday stuff, like started out working at a really good job, bought a condo, settled down with my girlfriend. But anxiety, depression, aggressiveness, violence started to take over who I was. And it was my girlfriend, who's now my wife, that said, you're different. You're not this happy-go-lucky person I knew before the war. And she challenged me. She said, if you could do anything in the world, what would you do? And I told her I'd start a dance company. So we started Exit 12, which started as a way for me to investigate the stories and experiences that I had had in Iraq. And then we started opening it up to other voices and other veterans. And it developed into what it is today, a vehicle to bring members of the military community in to creatively engage through movement and theater with their experiences, their military experiences, their human experiences, and to put them on stage so that other people can learn, other people can see the different sides of what it means to serve in the military and the plethora of people that don the uniform.
Wow. That is remarkable. And there's a couple things that immediately kind of jumped out that I like to reflect back on. The personal side, you went from professional dancer to Marine, and you talked about it so eloquently as to why. But what was that thought process like at that time? And then I also heard Korean war veteran for was it father or grandfather?
It's my grandfather, yeah.
Grandfather. So that contributed to your sense of, pride and wanting to go into the military as well?
Absolutely. My family had a rich history of service in the military. My grandfather was an Army Korean War veteran. All of his brothers served in a different branch of the military. So we had representation in the family of the Marines, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Air Force. My uncles close to me served in both the Navy and the Air Force. One was on the USS Coral Sea, launching planes off the deck. The other one was working on radar systems for the fighter jets. And so it was, that rich military tradition that made me want to at least explore in some way service.
So I love this, and I've been repeatedly I'm back-to-back champion of voted most likely to cry on the podcast, because I've just hit a point in my life where you have to just drop the ego, and it's so much more fun to live that way and be vulnerable when you need to be vulnerable and be tough when you need to be tough. And I found that as long as you allow those things to happen naturally, they don't sneak up on you anymore. And if they do, you embrace them like an old friend instead of fighting it. You sort of sit in it. So, I appreciate what you do and the courage it takes to and the luck that you had in finding someone that could understand you at that age. Because I think, as men, as we get into our 30s and 40s, we know how tough it is to just exist. And if my buddy tells me that his favorite artist is Justin Bieber and he likes to create like color crayons and he doesn't eat them because that's dangerous, despite what Marines say, then I encourage that. I was a corpsman with 2-1 Marines, and so I love my guys. I love my Marines. So I say all that. It's not directly related to my question. I just wanted to acknowledge you and what you're doing and how much I absolutely look up to you for that. But I'm curious what you mean by the military human in your research. So how do you think the arts can uniquely capture aspects of that military experience that other forms of storytelling, what other different mediums might not be able to express?
I think especially in the human condition, there are many things that happen to us that are inexplicable, that we can't put into words,
Yeah.
and are really hard to explain to others. Communication was once defined to me as just clues we give other people that they have to interpret and understand in order to understand what we're trying to tell them. And so
I like
when
that.
we're not the best at giving words to others, we can use other forms of expression to show them how we see the world.
Mhm.
Dance is one of the ways I do it. I also work in the United Kingdom with an organization that works with the military community and other forms of art. And in every art form that we've invited the military community to participate in and learn about, we often hear, "Oh, I'm not an artist. I'm not creative. I can't do this." And at the end of every workshop, whether it's painting, theater, movement and dance, music, at the end, these people have created songs and beautiful paintings and writings and plays. And they look at it and they start to judge. They start to put value on whether what they created is good, bad, or start to point out the deficiencies that they see. And I try and tell every single one of them, this is a gift to be able to look at this piece of art and see the world exactly the way that you see it. Because we don't always get that opportunity.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a fantastic answer.
You know, Román, you and I have talked in the past, and Alphas, just so you know, if we haven't made it clear in the opening, I know this guy, and I know him pretty well. But Román, you and I have talked in the past because we're both creatives, and we've talked about how becoming military, you're stripped of your identity, and you're kind of taught to conform. You are dissuaded from being creative, and your creative soul is damped down. I'm not saying that it's completely eliminated, because I, as a combat photographer, later on was encouraged to let that creative part of myself reconnect. But for many, if you're like a one-term person, that's for 4 years, that's tamped down. For if you're a lifer, that could be 20 and 30 years. So when you're interacting with veterans during some of your dance programs, how are you helping them reconnect with that creative self? Or maybe some people have never connected with that creative identity. Can you talk to me about that transformation during military service, basic training, and what reconnecting or connecting with the creative self is like?
I love this question because it's at the crux of what we do. I've done so much research into how military training itself is designed to remove the individual and to create a collective that is all conditioned to obey orders and to do things that the normal human being is designed and has instinct not to do. Run towards danger, take a life if needed to, hurt others, right? And when we're in uniform, those things and that training is absolutely necessary. And so the way military training does that is it does certain things to strip identity from the human being. And if you think back to military training you've gone through, or maybe you've seen or heard about, they start very inconspicuously by taking your belongings and putting them away while you're in basic training, giving you the same clothes as everyone else, a uniform, teaching you how to walk, talk, make your bed, shine your shoes like everyone else around you. And then maybe the most important thing is they strip you of your name, that one thing that we all hold dear that identifies us. And for the rest of your military career, you're known as a rank and your last name. I like to tell people that I didn't know a lot of my Marines' first names, and I thought they were pretty funny when I did learn them after I had been serving with them for a while. But then when we're done with military service, a lot of us find ourselves, I can speak from experience. I found myself lost because I didn't have that military identity to lean on anymore in the civilian world. And so when we start working with identity in particular, we use a combination of relying on the military training that they know, the movement that they know, the things that they know, and then pulling away from that using creative exercises and tools to start awakening the mind in a creative way, to start introducing things like joy and play and community into the space. And then when all of that is working, when these individuals are moving creatively, they're thinking creatively, they're innovating, and they're working together with others, wonderful things start to happen. They start to awaken a certain spirituality within them and within the group, and a certain hope. And when I say spirituality and hope, there's a connotation that comes along with those words, but I want to lean on the definition that the US Army has given to those two words, particularly the chaplaincy corps. And they define spirituality as that community around us that supports us, that gives us those things that we need that we don't have ourselves in order to move through this world. And then hope, the vision of the future that we have for ourselves and those around us. And so spirituality and hope work together to motivate us forward. And so when we're working these creative workshops, that's what we're aiming for, to find that individual, to give them in a community, and to show them a future that is possible for them.
That's pretty cool. I'm curious. I know when you got back from Iraq, you already mentioned really briefly that you struggled a bit, and it really took your partner kind of shaking you up. What was your reconnection to your creative self like? Like how did you guide yourself back, or did somebody hold your hand?
So many people have held my hand. And I mean, Stacy, you probably know this with all the people that you've worked with in the creative world. You can't do it alone. And it's that old adage, as a teacher, as an instructor, as a facilitator, you're learning as much from the people that are there in the room as they're learning from you. And I feel lucky and sort of selfish, because when I go in a room with the participants and I'm doing my work the best, I'm not doing anything, because they're grabbing the creative prompts, they're grabbing the creative energy in the room, and they are flying with it. And they're creating, they're moving, they're sharing, and they're helping each other and healing each other. And that is such a beautiful thing to witness, and such a beautiful thing to put into action in the room.
One of your parts of your story, Román, that really resonates with me was kind of where you looked at like conventional things after getting out. And that was kind of my path or trajectory to a degree, or at least I thought it was going to be, which was kind of like officer to corporate. I was so innovative, like I was considering the oil and gas industry. And my brother ended up getting medically retired, and I started this nonprofit with them to focus on TBIs for service members. But I couldn't like sustain myself like financially doing that work. And it was this laborsome thing of like having to go back and get these like conventional societal skill sets to be able to apply to this soul-driven, service-oriented work. And it sounds like, there was a period of time where you were kind of dealing with that like yourself. Maybe it was the narrative of what the Army had stripped away and built you into, that you thought you had to go in and fit into. But then there was this expression of, if you could put your spirituality and hope into a vision of the future that you want to embody, what would that be? And Exit 12 emerged, right? And so what year was that, and what has that Exit 12 kind of journey been? And when you put your arm around a veteran that comes in, what does that look like for them practically? Yeah.
I love that you give your own example. because I resonate with it. Like that courage that it takes to create something new, and it could be creating a painting or creating an organization,
Mm.
is bravery. And there wasn't we started Exit 12 in 2007, and there wasn't a moment where I was like, oh
Wow.
yeah, we've made it. Oh yeah, we're doing great things. It's been a struggle. And we didn't even incorporate until 2018. We had been a project-based organization. We had been finding work where we could. We incorporated in 2018 when an organization decided to do a documentary on us. And it was the first time that an outside entity had come in and told our story in a way that people could really connect.
Mm.
And it gave us a little bit of momentum to work harder. And not saying that we weren't already working hard, because we were looking at our participants and seeing the way that they were connecting and responding to the work that we were doing, and realizing that if we were touching one person, that if we were having an impact in the life of one person, then we were doing something important. And for me personally, it was like you said, the courage to step away from a career that was paying well,
Mm.
you know, I, and go into the arts and put both feet into the arts. And I've been doing just the arts since almost 2017, when I got a Fulbright to come to the UK and do my Master's of Fine Arts in choreography. And then stayed here to work with the Royal British Legion, the Drive Project, and the Ministry of Defense, doing art for veterans and the military community here. But I'll tell you, my wife and I are both artists. We're committed to Exit 12 and the impact that Exit 12 is having on veterans, their families, members of the military community. But it's that constant struggle of, where do the dollars come from, and how do we sustain ourselves when we're doing this really, really good work?
Well, I think the greatest struggles, oftentimes, if you allow them to, will produce like the greatest rewards. And I think like that 10 years that you were, working through it to be able to get to do it full time, you don't know how much you appreciate the opportunity unless you've been through those struggles to get there. You don't take it for
Absolutely.
granted. And that really comes through. So thank you for that, Roman.
Yeah, it's almost like you spend this time building a big empty room and you hear the echoes of yourself in it, and then being able to watch the journey of it slowly being filled with all those dreams and all those things and all those people that you wanted to have an impact on. And I'm sure it was so scary to be in that big empty room with all these hopes and dreams all by yourself, to start with. And so your push through was very Marine, but also I think it was you. It was you. So I, you've talked about how Exit 12 involves veterans, but also engages civilian dancers and audiences. And you've spent time in the UK. So I'm curious how this has influenced, your perspective in some ways, because I know there are cultural differences in how military experiences are processed between veterans, that served in Iraq from different countries. But my real question, I guess, if I had to narrow it down, would be, what is it like seeing these beautiful moments of understanding and empathy when those who don't have the experiences that we have get invited into our world? Because there's a vulnerability of saying, okay, I get in front of people and I talk, and I will never forget the best talk I ever gave. I went into it with a bad attitude, and it's not me. Anybody who knows me knows I just don't do that. I wake up in the morning with a smile on my face, and I do what I got to do, and I'm genuinely happy. I went into this room. Everybody in there was making, 6.5 figures, and I was struggling at the time financially, and I was about to step into a room and pour my heart out to people that I didn't think had the capacity to understand what I was about to say. And they introduced me, and in this weird, dumb, juvenile rebellion side of me, they said, "Here's Joe Worley. He lost his leg in Iraq in 2004." And I said, "Well, I didn't lose it. I knew where it went. It went everywhere." It's an awful joke. I know that, but it was a lash out to just take control back of the room that I felt like I was powerless in. My mistake, however, was that I didn't realize it was a veteran resource group until I said that line. And instead of getting the shocked clutching of pearls, I got about 25 of those, and I busted out crying. I wasn't humiliated. I was humbled. It was different, because with humiliation, you don't learn. It's a punishment with humility. I learned that you never know who you're talking to, and you never know when you're having a conversation with somebody else that might be a core memory for them. They may need that. And if you're not willing to be vulnerable and be open with that person, then you're wasting it. You're wasting that moment of vulnerability and that connection that you can have. And so, to circle back around to my question after my little diatribe there, what is it like when people get it? Every once in a while, there's not everybody can, but there's moments when you see someone who's lived a very different life from us, and they just, something happens, something snaps in them. That's a beautiful moment.
I love your example because I think it highlights one thing that I've learned in all of the veteran communities I've worked in. And it's that every veteran, no matter how much we grandstand in front of everyone, every veteran thinks that there's somebody who's had it worse than them. I was in central London, and we're at this beautiful theater that one of the biggest musicals in London is playing at. And that day, the organization I work with out here, the Drive Project, had coordinated a storytelling workshop with veterans from the UK who had lost a limb, and veterans from, or military from, the war in Ukraine that were newly limbless. And they're coming together. We have interpreters all over the place. We have a storytelling coach that's leading them through how to tell their story and what their story means. And they're on break. And I go out to the balcony, and one of the UK military members comes up to me, and this individual has lost both of their legs at the knee. So they're a double leg amputee. And I ask him how he's doing, and he starts telling me about the experience and how he's just in awe that he's in a room with a bunch of people who were in the battle, like one of the biggest battles in Ukraine. And I'm looking at him, and I'm in awe of him. He's in awe of the people that are in the room from the war in Ukraine. And the humility leads, and brotherhood. When people get it, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest examples that I use that pierces through the hardest hearts and the stubbornest minds is that of a veteran that we've been working with since 2011. And his name's Everett. I have permission to tell his story. He was a Vietnam era veteran. When we started Exit 12, we started working with a lot of Vietnam era veterans because they were the ones that realized that they needed help. And they were willing to help us, knowing what was coming from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So Everett served in the army in Vietnam. When his draft number came up, he volunteered and was sent. He volunteered to join the army and then volunteered to go to Vietnam. And in Vietnam, he experienced one of the most traumatic days of his life. It was a rocket attack. And everybody thinks they know how they will perform under fire. And Everett recalls that he was petrified. He could not move a muscle. He was frozen in fear. That moment contributed to so much guilt and so much shame for Everett that he came home, did not want to be associated as a veteran, went to mostly destructive ways to try and forget or try and move past that experience, including drugs, alcohol, suicidal ideation, doing nothing but manual labor to beat his body into submission, and none of it worked. So then he went on this sort of spiritual journey, going to an alternative college overseas, coming back to the US and just searching for healing. Somehow he found the arts through a retreat called the Omega Institute. And then he found Exit 12. Fast forward a couple of years, we've been working with Everett, and we're on the deck of the Intrepid, building a show that we're going to perform on this aircraft carrier in New York Harbor. And there's a exercise we use called journey mapping, where we have people draw a line that represents a period of their life that they want to remember. We have them walk it and self-narrate, and then we have them walk it with everyone else so that they kind of take everyone through the journey of their life. So everybody does this. We have, incredible people sharing incredible stories, including 2 refugees from the war in Ukraine that were sharing their journey to New York. A couple of military people, a couple of military spouses sharing their journeys. They're incredible. We have the show. The show's great. The audience gets so much from the performance of both the veterans and the work that they created, and then the work that we put on. Exit 12 is trying to explain these war experiences. And then a couple days after the performance, I get an email from Everett, and he tells me the story of his journey through the creative arts. And he shares that when I asked him to do that journey mapping, he decided that he was going to recreate the scariest moment of his life, the rocket attack in Vietnam. Every single bone and muscle in Everett's body when he was doing this rebelled and wanted him to stop at every moment when he was doing this. And he knew that all of the other participants were doing similar things and struggling with similar experiences. And that knowledge and that community gave him the strength to go through it until his heart was still.
Wow.
When he was done, he went back to his therapist. And for the first time in his life, his therapist downgraded him from high suicide risk to low.
Wow.
That's what the arts can do. That is how the arts can impact people in a very large and transformative way.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. I've gotten a lot of peace. This will be 20 years for me. September is 20 years for me since I got hurt. On Labor Day, I lost most of my second squad. And this month I have decided to focus heavily on art, between writing and music. And that's just what I'm doing. I'm even going to work on my body. Like I'm just focusing on starting this month and ending it better mentally, physically, and spiritually. And it's tough. It's tough because, when you start doing stuff like that, life is like, I got something special for you.
Absolutely.
And so, but here we are. This is where we buckle down. This is where we make champions. The hard days.
Yeah.
Well, Ramon, I think we should have a little fun. And for the alphas listening, I know this little exercise because I've done it with Ramon, but I don't think Joe knows what's coming.
Nope.
And since it's Joe's 20th anniversary for surviving that big old blast on the bridge, I think
The
this would be
herdiversary.
very, very herdiversary, as Joe likes to say. Ramon, I know you walked me through an exercise. It was a dance exercise, and you can do it from a seated position. And for the alphas to really kind of to understand, because some of them are just going to be listening. They won't be necessarily watching it on YouTube, so they won't see Joe's video. Maybe kind of you can kind of share what visually Joe is doing through his expression. But do you want to do that exercise that we've done together before?
Absolutely.
All right, take it away, Ramon.
So we're going back to identity. And this is an exercise we do when we invite veterans into the room for the first time. And it's called the name game. And all we're going to do is we're going to create a gesture that for us might mean our name. Now, I know that's a large order, but there's 3 ways you can do this. And they're just suggestions. You can also go for, your own way of creating movement. But in this space, there's no right and there is no wrong. So toss judgment out the window. And then the best way to create movement is just to begin moving. So if I think about moving and I try and create in my mind what I'm going to do, I might get stuck. But if I just move, that could be what I create.
Yeah.
And the third thing is just follow my lead.
All right.
I'm going to start. My name's
Okay.
Román. So I'm going to say my name with my gesture. Román. And we're all going to do this together. So join me. You're going to take your right arm. You're going to circle it around your face 3 times. 1,
Mhm.
2, 3. You're going to serve it up like a pizza.
Delicious.
And now you're going to put the name with it. So the Ro goes with the 3 circles. The Mon goes with the pizza. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Román.
Román.
Got it.
Awesome.
So circle, circle,
One more.
circle, serve. Okay, got it.
Yep. One more time. 1, 2, 3.
Román. Got it.
Awesome. Joe, I hand it over to you.
Joe.
Awesome. I love that. So what Joe did is Joe took his right hand, put it over his heart, his left hand over his right hand, and then opened his arms in supplication towards the audience or the person in front of him. So let's do that together. Right arm over the heart, left arm over the right arm, and then we're just going to open. And now we're going to add Joe's name. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Joe.
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 Awesome. 1, 2, 3. Joe.
Joe.
And now we're going to put both of them together. 1, 2, 3. Román.
Román.
Joe.
Joe.
That's
Wow.
beautiful. Thank you. That was incredible.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Oh, that was a great description of what Joe did. Opened from his heart with supplication.
And if you think I didn't well up when I did that, you guys don't know me. You know me. I mean, I get into it. I'm all like, I'm a empathy guy. So
Well, you know what? I thought I was gonna do one too, and I was gonna go to my heart too. So shout out, Joe. We were
well,
both
we got
we were both
spiritual
gonna come from
resonance
the
over
heart.
here.
Yeah, but I was gonna do like a little like heart.
Like,
Oh
like
yeah.
a heart emoji type thing.
Like
I love it.
Are there
super
any-
obvi on the heart.
Are there any projects that Exit 12 is working on right now that we should be aware of?
Amazingly, a ton of them. And I'll try and sum them up quickly. We've got a Creative Forces grant. So the National Endowment for the Arts has partnered with American for the Arts and the Veterans Administration to create a grant called Creative Forces. It's aimed at both the clinical and the community aspects of art within the military and veteran space. And so we have raised a bit of money through Creative Forces and other avenues to do 3 projects. We're going to go to Missoula, Montana, and work with a group of veterans to bring a brand new story to audiences in Montana. Then we're going to head down to the Citadel in South Carolina. It's a military college. We're going to work with cadets there to give them tools, creative tools that they might use in service, and share dance, movement, and storytelling with them. And then we're going to go back to the Intrepid in New York City and create a new program with more veterans, military families, to tell their stories in really tangible ways on the deck of an aircraft carrier.
Wow, that's awesome. Those are 3 incredible projects. And we got to get something with Exit 12 and the Legion coming. And I can only imagine my post in Dothan, Alabama, doing that exercise, seeing all those guys. That would be great. They would love that. All right, Alphas.
Exit 12 has great connections with the American Legion. We've done so many workshops at American Legion posts around the US and the New York State. And I served as an adjutant for the American Legion post in West Hartford, Connecticut for a little while. So
nice.
Worked together before, we can work together again.
Hey, if somebody,
Yeah.
if a Legion post wants to
That'd be
host
great.
you or host a clinic, how do they go about getting a hold of you? Just visit Exit 12 Dance Company or?
Exit12danceco.org on the internet, and they can find the contact us page there, or they can email us directly at info@exit12danceco.org.
Cool.
All right, Alphas, you can check out Roman's Exit 12 Dance Company, like he said, at exit12danceco.org. And there you'll find his social media link. But we'll also have those in our show notes. Román, we appreciate the time you spent with us today. It's been so fun. Before you sign off, is there anything else that you want to share with our Alphas that we didn't have the opportunity to discuss?
It's been an incredible conversation, and I didn't expect the creativity and empathy that was displayed by all of you, and it just makes my heart so big. And for all of you alphas out there, if creativity is not your thing, do something. Get off the couch, get involved in horsemanship with Stacy, get involved with outdoor sports, go kayaking, paint, make candles, do something. Connect with others and create in your own way.
I love you, Román. Thank you.
I love you too.
All right, Román, thank you. And Alpha, stick around for some scuttlebutt right after the break.
As a veteran, you've done more than your fair share of providing support. Now it's our turn. Introducing the WellCare and the American Legion Partnership and the WellCare Medicare Advantage plans that give you more support, more access, and more benefits in addition to your VA benefits. Visit wellcareforveterans.com today or call 844-917-1165. Ohana Health Plan, a plan offered by WellCare Health Insurance of Arizona, Inc. New Mexico Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan, DSNP members. As a WellCare by All Well DSNP member, you have coverage from both Medicare and Medicaid. Medicaid services are funded in part by the state of New Mexico. New Mexico Medicaid benefits may be limited to payment of Medicare premiums for some members.
Okay, Alphas, we hope you had a great breakdance and break. Now it's time for some scuttlebutt.
I feel like today's guest and the topic of dance might be a really great opportunity to talk about this summer's blowout breakdancing competition at the Summer Olympics and that amazing and perhaps contentious performance by the Australian athlete Rachel Gunn, aka the Raygun.
Pew, pew, pew.
I love her.
And all the memes and all the jokes and all the little sidebars that have come and that are probably still rolling out that I see in my feed all the time. So naturally, I had to go down a Reddit rabbit hole to see what the people of the world are saying about the Rachel Raygun on the blogosphere, on the webs, and they did not disappoint as per usual. So at a lot of iron in the fire asked, quote, I mean, this is the nicest way, and I mean this in the nicest way, but why is breakdancing an Olympic sport? Great question. A lot of irons in the fire. And also to which at Beetlejuice 5555 also asked, quote, why is there a PhD in breakdancing? Why is that a thing?
My question is, why not?
Why
not? And great name, Beetlejuice. I dig it. Nice handle. At Conundrum Bum, which is a conundrum bum, responded, quote, everything is an Olympic sport these days. But at Mr. Fix-It 252 added more accurately, most host countries get to include one Olympic sport. When the U.S. hosts their Summer Olympics coming up soon, their sport will be, guess it, guys? Can you guess it? Do you know what it is? Don't look. Flag football.
Didn't know.
Is that true? Is that true?
That's
It's on the internet, so it must be.
We do love our flag. I mean, I see it.
Flag football is huge. Flag
that's what
football.
the interwebs say. Ours is going to be flag football.
I
Now,
believe.
I'm curious how robust will other like foreign teams be in flag football? You know, soccer, of course.
Mhm.
Everyone seems to have a soccer team. That's
Yeah, they're
more-
going to show up thinking they're supposed to kick the ball with flags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rest of the world calls it.
Watch us still
soccer
lose.
football. Yeah.
Also on the Reddit rabbit hole, at Ramesides exclaimed, can't wait for an Olympic ballet. Well, Román, I see you. And there you go. I can see the Olympic rings in your future, Román. So whether you're an athlete or a coach, I can see you on the pedestal.
I just want to add that at Dragon Con, there were multiple Raygun cosplays, and I was here for it in a big way.
Were they
loved it.
Were they doing
What
the
is
kangaroo hop? Because that was my favorite move.
They were doing there were piles of them. So there was like 5 or 6 of them together, and they all did a different pose. And I was so in the moment, I didn't even take a picture because I was just there for it. You know what I mean? I wish I had gotten a picture in retrospect, but I'm glad that I was just watching because it was legitimately cool.
Did you get on the floor and do the worm toe touch? Because that
not on purpose.
what I really love.
What is Dragon Con?
Oh man, Dragon Con is like a convention
for nerds.
For nerds, and I mean that I mean that as one. Absolutely, I was there with
Like a Comic Con, but it's
a big Comic Con, yeah, but it's massive. It's out of Atlanta. I've met some really incredible people there. I go there every year with a group of publishers called Shadow Alley Press, who are just a good group of people run by a Marine. And they're just good people.
And
Man.
it's just like what? Like what do you do there? What is all
Well,
the
so
things?
people share their art, they share their crafts. A lot of, I mean, there's everything from, you can buy everything from lightsabers to horns that you can drink out of. Like, I mean, just everything you could imagine
I think they
is
should make
there.
that an Olympic sport.
It's pretty cool.
Well, I was gonna ask you guys, what if you could pick an Olympic sport, a unique one? Which sport would you want to see?
That Dragon Con. What he
You
just
want to see? Well,
described.
Dragon Con's an event. That's not a sport.
Yeah, but
It
make
seems
in-
like a sport
who
when
can
you have
throw
to
the
roll
best
through
event.
the
There
city
you
of
go.
Atlanta with a chair with flat tires. Felt pretty Olympic to me.
Oh, your wheelchair had flat tires?
Oh, historically.
That must have been hysterically historic.
It was.
I'm sure Galaxy was really loving you that day too.
He did the one day. Yeah. After that, it was like, I can't do this. It was so hard to get in and out of the building, and they were really locking it down. So it took 25 minutes to get in the building. So
Did
after the
Galaxy
first
did
day.
Galaxy, your service dog, get dressed up for cosplay?
No, he's not a geek like I am. He's
What
too
did you
cool
dress
for
up? What did you
school.
dress up? Did you dress up as a
I dressed
snake?
up as my nephew, because he wears a cowboy hat and his shirt is always open down to his belly button. And I made the mistake of dressing up like him and was wildly comfortable all day. It may have shifted my style.
Wait, open from the top to the navel or from
Imagine what you're wearing, but put a cowboy hat on. And
Okay.
this is how he is. This is not a front. This is not him being funny or dressing up. Put a cowboy hat on and wearing nothing underneath, and we can basically see your belly button. That's pretty much how he lives his life. Pair of
Okay.
jeans, a belt with a belt buckle on it, and an unbuttoned shirt.
Oh, okay. But I'm glad he feels comfortable in his own skin. And
It is a
confident.
comfortable outfit.
Good
And
for
if I
him.
had to pick a sport, I think it'd be cool if people would wear blindfolds and shoot arrows up in the air and try and dodge them.
That is
Okay.
dangerous.
That sounds very.
Is that not a sport? I feel like that's a sport.
I think that's called javelin.
Not
Javelin.
since the
There you
Dark
go.
Ages.
Yeah, the Dark Ages. They stopped doing arrow dodging
I think
since
that's
the
called
incident.
harpoons.
How they
Harpoons.
kept the population in check back in the day.
And super producer Holly says lawn darts. It's called lawn sing
On
jarts.
yards.
Lawn jarts.
Did you jart?
It's called sharts. It's lawn
Somebody jarted.
Oh my
Somebody
gosh.
jarted my
I-
pants.
My
Oh,
7.
well, this conversation is turning into a piece of jart right now. So, anyway, I would say my favorite move from the ray gun was the windshield wiper on the ground, and
Yeah.
it's been turned into a lot of memes and compared to a lot of moves and who did it best. And I will say the comparative videos, my favorite was the cat move, the cat versus ray gun. So, alphas, feel free to do your best ray gun impression. Send it to us. We'll harass Holly. Just overload her with your best ray gun moves, and we want to share them on social media. Maybe we'll make a compilation and we'll put them in the stories. I don't know who's got a story for us next.
Senior enlisted leaders among the littoral combat ship Manchester's Gold Crew installed and secretly used their very own Wi-Fi network during a deployment. Joe,
Naughty.
according to a scathing internal investigation obtained by Navy Times. Way to go, Navy Times. As the ship prepared for a West Pacific deployment in April 2023, so this is pretty recent, the enlisted leader on board conspired with the ship's chiefs to install the secret unauthorized network aboard the ship for use exclusively by them. No more downtimes for the gaming broadband. What do they need the exclusive internet for? I mean, seriously.
I think the punishment should be everyone's web data gets shared publicly. That's the
I was
punishment.
just thinking their browsing history might be a very interesting thing to see.
You can either take the NJP, or we can email your browsing history to your spouse. Your choice.
I'm thinking it'll all start a lot with Pornhub / fill in the blank.
Oof. Well, the
Just
Chiefs
saying.
installed a Starlink satellite internet dish, thanks to Elon Musk, on top of the ship and used a Wi-Fi network they dubbed Stinky. All caps. So that could have that could have
I
been a
mean,
lot
nobody would
earlier.
ever think that
Yeah,
was something nefarious.
to check sports scores and text home and stream movies, they said.
Air
In
quotes.
Yeah,
The
we're
enjoyment of
all air
Sports
quoting there.
scores.
wireless creature comforts by enlisted leaders aboard the ship carried serious repercussions for the security of the ship and its crew, led by senior enlisted leader of the ship's gold crew, then command senior chief Grizel Moraro. The effort roped in the entire chief's mess by the time it was uncovered a few months later. Moraro was relieved in late 2023 after repeatedly misleading and lying to her ship's command about the Wi-Fi network, and she was convicted at court-martial this spring in connection with the scheme. She was sentenced to a reduction in rank to E7 after the trial.
Oh my gosh.
Just
You know what? What's the movie that came out a couple years
Under
ago?
Siege.
No. I was thinking about that gal that was running the off the books poker ring in New York City.
Oh,
and she was
Molly's
poker-
Game?
Molly's Game. I can see
oh,
this chief is like running a total Molly's Game with her secret
Wi-Fi
stinky Wi-Fi
Stinky
connection.
Wi-Fi.
can we also acknowledge that if it wasn't going to be E4 Marines, it was going to be E7 plus Chiefs? If there's any group of people that are going to get in trouble above E5, it's Navy Chiefs.
Oh my
Together,
gosh.
collectively, as an entire group.
Well, you're the flibbin' sailor on this podcast. You tell
I'm
me.
fake sailor. No, that's what I'm telling you. Those guys are shady. They're like a gang.
It doesn't say how they found out though. So what is this like a
Because
like
too many people knew. Somebody was going to brag. You know how it is.
maybe in the
people are
article
stinky.
it goes more in
Ah,
depth.
Well,
So the Navy Times article goes very in depth into the lies and subterfuge that the Chiefs mess engaged in to install and keep the network secret. So you'll want to check that out in the show notes. It's pretty
In the
fascinating.
upcoming Netflix special in
In the
2028.
upcoming
And,
Under Siege Part 3.
with the title
Stinky
Subterfuge.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah. The
Stinky
name of
subterfuge.
the name of the Netflix series, Subterfuge, pun intended, stinky things afoot aboard the
That's it.
The
Holly's
stinky
actually
ship.
got a new gig at Netflix naming all their new movies.
Nice.
All right. I think Joe's got a story for us.
I do. We'll have a link in our show notes for that. And we're going to double down on our Bravo Zulu for today with a story from Legiontown. 18-year-old Alex Williams and his 5 siblings, which is 4 too many, have lived most of their lives in group homes. Oh, goodness. I'll shut up. With various relatives.
Hey, how's that foot in your mouth, Joe?
I don't know. I can't stand with it because it's the only foot I have.
Damn.
Now I'm sitting in my chair. I'm stuck and I'm got a mouthful of foot. So 18-year-old Alex Williams and his awesome 5 siblings have lived most of their lives in group homes with various relatives and in several foster homes. Alex attended 11 different schools, including Cherokee High School in Canton, Georgia.
Shout out Canton, Georgia.
Yes. Before finally dropping out early in the senior year. It all just wore me down. I lost any sense of purpose, Williams said. I didn't know what goals to set for myself or where to turn. And that's scary. And we did fostering up until we adopted our last kid that we had fostered. And these kids, the fact that any story that I see where someone makes it out of the system is incredible to me. So, but he finally decided a military career was the answer he was looking for. I wanted discipline in my life, and I thought I could find that in the Marines, he said. But the U.S. Marine Corps requires all recruits to have a high school diploma or equivalent, no exceptions. With no diploma, no money, and no family support, Williams confided in his group home manager, who introduced him to Jim Lindenmeyer, a gentleman that I know and who works tirelessly for veterans, and not just for them, but also for homeless veterans. He ran a festival, I think it was in 2017, 2018, called Ghost Fest. The whole point was people don't see homeless veterans. And he's a good guy. He spends a lot of his life working towards veterans. But Lyndon Meyer is an executive director of Cherokee County Homeless Veterans Program, Georgia American Legion Post 45 service officer, and the key to solving Alex's dilemma. Alex wasn't a veteran, but he was homeless. And this was a young guy who'd had zero breaks in his life and was determined to work to turn things around and really wanted to serve his country, Lyndon Meyer said. Our policy is to leave no one behind, and we always want to pay it forward. He's never really had a family, but the Marines will become his family. Man, what a stand-up guy, guys. I'm telling you, there were more people like Jim in this world. So in July, Lyndon Meyer arranged to pay for Williams to stay at a Canton motel while they worked to meet the Marines' educational requirement. Rich Sabo, Commandant of the Marine Corps League in Cherokee County, recruited former teachers to help Williams prepare for the General Education Developmental Test. So Williams passed with a score more than twice the minimum required, which means he's probably smarter than half the Marines already, and began recruiting training at Parris Island, South Carolina in late August. So Sergeant Daniel Landrum, who runs the Marine recruiting station in Canton, said Williams' determination and resourcefulness make him exceptional. When I first talked to him, he had no diploma, no driver's license, no birth certificate, and these aren't things that he can just get. It's really, really tough. We had already adopted my 2-year-old, and we'd had him since he was 3 days old, and we didn't get a social security card from him until we had another one made because he had been adopted. So he had no diploma, no driver's license, no birth certificate, but he wanted very badly to serve at the highest capacity, Landrum said. He's had very little support in his life, but he's smart. And he's a stand-up young man. I have 2 children of my own, and it's impressive to find somebody like this. So on August 22nd, Lyndon Meyer hosted a luncheon to celebrate Williams' acceptance into the Marines. While those who helped him fulfill this dream applauded, Williams cut the first slice of a red, white, and blue cake with a ceremonial U.S. Marine Corps sword, and I was not invited, and there was cake. Jim? So bravo Zulu to Alex for hanging in there, asking for help, and then working hard to achieve your goal. And bravo Zulu to all the Legionnaires and others in the Canton, Georgia community who stepped in to help Alex. You've truly changed his life. I've said enough. I've bragged on Jim too much here. I think that,
I don't think you can brag enough. That was an incredible story. And we need
he's like that. He's just consistent.
Yeah,
he's done so much.
That's awesome. And you don't hear about youth like that much anymore. You know,
well, it's not just that act, but it's also what this young man's going to do going forward. So the impact that's going to have for generations to come. And I think that's the harder thing to kind of like, see into the future on. But you feel it, through that heart-centered desire to service and overcome, these generational kind of things that have been bestowed upon this young man. And he's like breaking that through the help of people like Mr. Lyndon Meyer.
I mean, look what he had to do to just join. Yeah. I mean, there are people that go in and disrespect and get out or and some of them are dealing with health issues and addiction issues and things like that. But, again, it's there are people that take advantage of what it was like for them. I mean, all I had to do was make sure I could run a little bit and do some push-ups and pull-ups. And that's all it took for me to get in. I didn't have the challenges he had. I tested well. But I will say though, having people step up and be in your corner can really make a difference, because if there wasn't people out there like Jim that was willing to do something, and there were people there that were obviously willing to help, but you need a leader. You need somebody to say, this person needs help. Let's pull together and do that. And so if you guys have people in your community that do things like that, support them. Let us know. We love these kind of stories. These are the kinds of things that we fall in love with. I love seeing leaders step up in community and organize people, because a lot of us want to help, but some of us don't have that spark that says, well, I'm going to do something even if nobody else does. So thanks, Jim. Good job. Bravo Zulu. Everybody involved.
Nice. All right, Alphas. Thanks for listening. You can subscribe to our podcast, our newsletter, send us mail, submit a guest recommendation, or hey, don't forget, you can also do that Raygun breakdancing video and send that to the legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima website. We'll see you next week.
Yes.